So, you've sent over this impressive stack of books and articles all about memory. Looks like everything from the history of memory to how it works, and most intriguingly, how some people seem to remember everything.
It really is a fascinating field, isn't it?
It is. It is. And it's got me wondering, are you prepping for a big presentation, or are you just curious about unlocking your inner memory champion?
Well, whatever the reason, I think this deep dive is going to be a fascinating one.
Yeah.
I mean, for centuries, these memory techniques were seen as almost like these secret practices, right?
Right.
But now science is starting to understand how they work and the incredible potential they have, really, to enhance everyday memory for everyone.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to explore whether our reliance on technology is causing our memory to fade, or if we can actually harness the power of both to unlock some incredible potential.
That's right.
But to kick things off, I think we've got to go back in time, way back to ancient Greece.
Okay.
So imagine this. You're at a banquet, the room is buzzing, you're catching up with friends, and then disaster strikes. The building collapses, trapping everyone inside. You're the only survivor. But here's the thing. You vividly remember where each person was sitting. You become the key to identifying the victims for proper burial.
Oh, wow.
Gruesome, right.
Yeah.
But this story of Simonides, a poet who lived through such an event, it sparked an idea. What if our memory for places could be used to remember anything?
It's incredible. And what's so captivating about Simonides' experience is how it connects to the way our brains are naturally wired. Think about our ancestors, right? They didn't need to remember phone numbers or grocery lists.
Right.
Their survival depended on remembering where to find food and shelter, on navigating their world. And that's why our spatial memory, our memory for locations, is so powerful. What we call memory techniques are really building upon this innate strength that we all possess.
It's like turning your home into a giant memory storage system.
Exactly. Exactly.
Speaking of which, you included some sources about something called a memory palace, which kind of sounds like something straight out of a fantasy novel.
It does.
But it's a real technique, and it's been used for centuries.
Yeah, it has.
Can you tell us more about how it works?
Yeah, so the memory palace, also sometimes known as the method of loci, it's all about associating these vivid images with and mentally placing them along a route through a familiar space, like your home, for example. So let's say you need to memorize a speech.
Yeah.
You could picture each key point as an object in a different room. And the more bizarre, the more emotionally charged you make those images, the more memorable they become.
So instead of just trying to remember, like, dry facts, I could imagine, say, Abraham Lincoln delivering a stirring speech from atop my refrigerator.
Exactly.
That's an image that would definitely stick with me. But, some people might be thinking, okay, that's a neat trick, but I'm no memory champion.
Right.
I can barely remember where I put my keys. So does this mean that these techniques are only for a select few with, like, extraordinary memories?
Not at all.
And
that brings us to the concept of deliberate practice. The research that you shared shows very clearly that experts in any field, whether it's chess, music, even memory sports, they aren't born with superhuman abilities.
Yeah.
They achieve mastery through years of focused strategic training. And the really exciting part is that anyone can significantly improve their memory with the right techniques and consistent effort. It's like learning a new language or a musical instrument. It takes time, it takes dedication, but the results are well worth it.
So if our brains are like muscles that we can train, are there specific exercises besides the memory palace that can help us like level up our memory game?
Absolutely. One of the most effective techniques is called chunking, and you probably use it already without even realizing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Think about phone numbers or credit card details. They're grouped together for a reason. Our brains are much better at remembering a few meaningful chunks of information than a long, overwhelming string of digits.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like the difference between trying to remember a jumbled pile of letters versus a catchy song lyric.
Exactly.
The song just naturally sticks in your head, so instead of trying to memorize a long shopping list, like item by item, I could group things together, like produce, dairy, snacks.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The more you know about a particular subject, the better you become at chunking information in that domain. Experts in any field, from chess masters to historians, they've effectively chunked vast amounts of knowledge in their long-term memory. This allows them to process and recall information with incredible speed and accuracy.
So they're like walking encyclopedias.
In a sense, yeah.
That reminds me, you highlighted a study on London taxi drivers. They have to memorize the city's, like, insanely complex layout.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
And it turns out their brains actually change as a result. It's like their brains rewire themselves to accommodate all that spatial information.
It is. And what's fascinating is that those structural changes, they occur primarily in the hippocampus,
Okay.
which is a brain area that's crucial for forming new memories. It's like the hippocampus is the brain's memory indexer, taking new experiences and turning them into memories that we can recall later.
Interesting.
This suggests that our brains are incredibly adaptable, capable of rewiring themselves throughout our lives to accommodate new learning.
So even though we might not be navigating a labyrinthine city like London cabbies, our brains are still capable of, like, impressive feats of memory if we know how to direct them.
Precisely. And it's not just about memorizing facts and figures. The research you shared also delves into the fascinating cases of savants. Individuals with extraordinary memory abilities that seem almost superhuman.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Take Daniel Tammet, for example. He can memorize thousands of digits of pi, and he claims to see numbers as unique shapes, colors, and textures.
Wow. That's incredible. It's like his brain is wired differently, giving him access to this, like, incredible memory capacity.
It really is remarkable.
So are savants just, like, born with these exceptional abilities, or is there something more to it?
It's a question that continues to fascinate scientists. While some researchers believe that savants possess this unique neurological wiring, others suggest that their abilities might stem from an intense, often obsessive, focus on specific subjects combined with the use of mnemonic techniques, even if they're not consciously aware of it.
So even someone like Daniel Tammet, who seems to have this extraordinary gift, might be utilizing similar techniques to what we've been discussing, just on a much grander scale.
Exactly. It suggests that our brains are capable of far more than we often realize. Speaking of pushing the limits of memory, you included some sources about memory athletes. These, like, mental marvels who can memorize decks of cards in seconds and recall these seemingly impossible lists of names and numbers. What stood out to you about their methods?
Honestly, some of the things they can do just seem straight up magical. Like, how can someone possibly memorize the order of a shuffled deck of cards in less time than it takes me to make a cup of coffee? The sources you shared mentioned Ed Cook, a memory champion who actually trains his memory using these, like, ancient techniques, especially the memory palace. It's fascinating that something used by ancient orators is now being used to win memory championships.
And Ed Cook's story highlights a crucial point. These techniques aren't just for memorizing mundane lists or impressing people at parties.
Right.
He actually credits them with helping him excel in other areas of life, from learning languages to absorbing information for his work.
So it's not just about, like, rote memorization. These techniques can actually enhance our overall cognitive abilities and help us become more effective learners in all areas.
Precisely.
Mm.
And Ed Cook isn't alone. Many memory athletes emphasize that their abilities aren't due to some innate gift, but rather the result of dedicated training and practice.
Mm-hmm.
They've honed their memory skills just like an athlete trains their body for peak performance.
That's inspiring. It means that even if we feel like our memories are just, like, average, now we have the potential to improve them significantly.
Yeah.
It's like anything else, right? The more you practice, the better you become.
Exactly.
But, it's one thing to memorize a list of words, and it's another to recall vast amounts of information accurately like memory athletes do. Do the sources you shared delve into those more advanced techniques?
They do, and they can get quite creative. For example, memory athletes often use a system called the Person Action Object, or PAO system, especially for memorizing numbers.
The PAO system? That sounds intriguing. How does that work?
So it's a clever system where each two-digit number from 00 to 99 is pre-assigned a vivid image of a person performing an action with an object. For instance, the number 23 might be represented by Albert Einstein, person writing on a chalkboard action with a piece of chalk object.
Okay, I can already see how that's more memorable than just trying to remember the number 23 on its own.
Exactly. And to memorize longer sequences, like a phone number, you would create a chain of these PAO images, linking them together in a memorable way, perhaps within a memory palace.
Okay.
The combination of vivid imagery, action, and spatial context makes the information incredibly sticky.
It's like creating a wild, unforgettable movie in your mind, starring famous figures and, like, random objects all tied to the information you need to remember. And by placing those scenes within a familiar location, like your childhood home, you're essentially building, like, a memory fortress.
Exactly.
But the sources you shared also touched upon another fascinating case. a man known as S from the studies of a Russian neuropsychologist, A.R. Luria. It sounds like S possessed this almost unbelievable memory.
S's case is truly remarkable. He could effortlessly remember long lists of words, numbers, even complex poems and mathematical formulas with incredible accuracy.
Wow.
And what's so intriguing is that he wasn't consciously using any specific memory techniques. His phenomenal memory seemed to be an inherent ability, potentially linked to a condition known as synesthesia.
Synesthesia, right. Isn't that where the senses get intertwined? Like seeing sounds or tasting colors?
You got it. In S's case, he experienced numbers and words as vivid sensory experiences. He didn't just see them as abstract symbols. He experienced them as shapes, colors, textures. This unique way of perceiving information likely played a significant role in his extraordinary memory.
So it's like his synesthesia provided him with these built-in memory hooks. The information wasn't just abstract. It was a rich, multi-sensory experience that etched itself into his memory. While most of us don't experience synesthesia as profoundly as S, it makes me wonder if we can all tap into our senses to enhance our memories.
That's a great point, and it's something that researchers have been exploring. Even without synesthesia, we can intentionally engage our senses when learning new information. Instead of just reading a text, we can try to visualize the scene, imagine the sounds, even connect it to smells or tastes.
It's like the difference between reading a recipe and actually tasting the dish.
Exactly.
The sensory experience makes it so much more real and memorable. But speaking of memory's impact on our lives, the sources you shared also delved into a more somber aspect, the devastating effects of amnesia.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to think about what it'd be like to lose those precious memories, you know, those threads that connect us to our past and shape our sense of self.
It is.
The sources you included mentioned a particularly poignant case, EP, a man who lost the ability to form new memories after a viral infection.
Right. And he lives in this perpetual present, unable to recall anything that happened, like, more than a few minutes ago.
It's a tragic case, really.
Oh, of tragic?
And deeply insightful, I think.
Yeah.
It highlights the crucial role of the hippocampus.
Yeah.
You know, that memory indexer we were talking about earlier?
Right.
Without a functioning hippocampus, we're essentially trapped in the moment,
Yeah.
unable to create the memories that form the foundation of our experiences, our relationships, and even our understanding of who we are.
Yeah. Wow. It makes you realize how much we really take our memories for granted, don't we?
They do.
They're not just facts and figures.
No.
They're the essence of our lives.
Yeah, they are.
You also included the story of Clive Waring, a musician who suffered a similar fate after a bout of encephalitis. And despite losing most of his memories, he could still play the piano and conduct a choir.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is, even without any recollection of learning those skills.
It's really remarkable.
It is.
And, you know, both EP and Clive Waring demonstrate the devastating effects of amnesia, of course.
Right.
But they also reveal the incredible complexity of memory. You know, their cases suggest that different types of memory are supported by different brain regions and networks.
Okay.
So even when some pathways are damaged, others can remain intact, allowing for specific forms of learning and memory to persist.
So it's like the brain finds these remarkable workarounds.
It does.
Rewiring itself to compensate for what's been lost.
Yeah, it's really quite incredible.
Yeah. It's a testament to the brain's, like, incredible plasticity, its resilience.
It is.
But it also makes you wonder about the connection between memory and intelligence, right? Because for centuries, memory was considered a cornerstone of intellect.
It was, yeah.
Think about those ancient orators like Cicero delivering these like intricate speeches from memory, weaving together history and philosophy and rhetoric. It's mind-boggling.
It's true.
Think about.
It's true. For centuries, a strong memory was practically synonymous with intelligence. The ability to memorize vast amounts of information. It was seen as essential for learning, critical thinking, even moral reasoning in some cases.
Yeah.
And this view persisted for quite a while. I mean, even into the 19th century, memory training was considered a fundamental part of a well-rounded education.
Right. Yet, as we mentioned earlier, there's been this like shift in how we view memory.
There has.
Especially in education. The sources I shared, you know, they highlight this tension between simply memorizing facts
Right.
and fostering deeper understanding, critical thinking, and creativity.
It's a fascinating debate, isn't it?
It is.
With the rise of progressive education, rote memorization kind of took a back seat, you know,
Yeah.
to experiential learning, problem solving. The focus shifted towards cultivating a deeper understanding of concepts, rather than just accumulating facts.
Yeah, it begs the question, in the age of Google, with instant access to information at our fingertips, do we even need to remember things anymore? Is human memory becoming obsolete?
That's the million-dollar question, and the answer, as with most things related to memory, is nuanced. While we have an incredible amount of information readily available at any given moment,
Right.
memory plays a vital role in how we make sense of that information.
Right. It's like having a library full of cookbooks,
Yes.
but no actual cooking skills.
Exactly. You need more than just access to recipes. You need the knowledge and experience to understand those recipes, adapt them, create something like delicious.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Memory is the bridge between information and understanding.
Okay.
It provides the framework for organizing all that raw data, recognizing patterns, making connections, forming, a cohesive worldview.
Mm.
Without a strong memory, it becomes much harder to engage in critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, all these higher level functions.
So even though we have Google and Wikipedia to provide us with facts,
Our memory is still essential for making sense of those facts, for turning information into knowledge and understanding.
precisely.
Yeah.
And the research you shared, it suggests that memory and intelligence may be even more intertwined than we realize.
Mhm.
You highlighted a study on chess masters, for example.
Yeah.
It found that while chess masters weren't necessarily more intelligent overall,
Okay.
they had exceptional memories for chess positions.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating.
It's not just their general intelligence that sets them apart.
Right.
It's this specialized knowledge base
Right.
built through years of experience and, crucially, stored in their memory.
So their exceptional memory for these chess positions allows them to quickly recognize patterns, anticipate their opponent's moves, and strategize effectively.
Exactly. It's like they've internalized the language of chess,
Mm.
allowing them to think and problem solve within that domain at an incredibly high level.
That makes me think about, expertise in other fields too.
Yeah.
Whether you're a musician, a scientist, a writer, a chef.
It applies across the board.
Your expertise relies on this foundation of knowledge stored in your memory. Knowledge that allows you to think critically, solve problems, create within your chosen field.
Absolutely. The more we know, the more connections our brains can make,
Hmm.
the more effectively we can learn and problem solve. In a sense, our memories form the building blocks of our expertise.
It all comes back to that memory.
It does.
Well, this has been such a thought-provoking deep dive. We've explored the history of memory techniques, the science behind how our memories work, the incredible feats of memory athletes, the devastating consequences of amnesia, and the complex relationship between memory and intelligence.
It's quite a range.
Yeah. And it's clear that memory is much more than just, rote memorization. It's integral to who we are, how we think, and how we engage with the world around us.
It truly is a fascinating and multifaceted aspect of what makes us human.
I completely agree.
And while technology can be a powerful tool, of course, for storing and accessing information,
Right.
I think our exploration today really highlights the importance of cultivating our own memory abilities.
Yeah, I totally agree. So as we wrap up, I'm curious to hear your final thoughts.
Okay.
What's the most important takeaway you hope listeners glean from our deep dive into memory?
That's a great question. For me, the most crucial message is this. Even in an age, really, that's dominated by technology, our memories, they remain powerful, adaptable, and deeply personal.
Yeah.
And by understanding how memory works,
Right.
we can harness its potential to enhance our learning, our creativity, our overall well-being.
Beautifully said. And perhaps as we navigate this world of information overload, it's worth remembering that our experiences, the connections we forge, the stories we carry, those are the elements that shape our unique memory tapestry.
I like that.
So go out there, be present, engage with the world, and create memories that will enrich your life. Who knows? You might even surprise yourself with what your memory is capable of.